level. We're in the C-suite now. So we have the CEO of the business here to talk to you about when to advertise, search data, the force behind decision making, not just optimization. So over to Matt. Big round of applause, please.
Thank you very much. I'm not shown. I'm a little bit older, a little bit paler, so I hope I'm going to be as exciting. I represent Searchmetrics. We deliver the #1 platform for both SEO, data, and services, with over 1,000 clients, blue chip and small. And I'm here to tell you that as an SEO, you're probably sitting on one of the least exploited but potentially most valuable assets that your business has. For the SEOs in the audience, how many people have got as much budget as they really need to do their job? Got a hand there. Oh, one at the back. Out of maybe 50 people. So I guess most people would like a little bit more budget. How many people talk budget? How many people talk investment? Much smaller number. Why not? Why don't you talk investment? We spend to get a return. We're not playing around, we're trying to improve the performance of our businesses. But we're talking budget. I need more budget, rather than saying, can I have X and I'm going to give you 2X or 3X back? And this afternoon, that's what I want to talk about. Potentially, how can you do that? And how can you exploit this asset that your business has and that you're mostly in control of? So this is the high street. This is what the high street used to look like. And used to look like this, partly because of this pandemic that we've had, but also think about the impact. Now, all of these have kind of disappeared from the high street, haven't they? Why? Well, because this is kind of what the high street looks like now. And it was happening anyway. We all know that. Businesses were going digital, bricks and mortar was declining. But it was happening at a certain rate, and now that is massively accelerated, and the pandemic has pushed it even further. So now, this is the new market, it's the new high street. When we browse to buy products, do we stroll down Oxford Street, or Curzon Dam, or 56th Street? Or do we actually browse down Google and say, hey, what's new? What am I looking for? What might I buy? And that's great, except just like being at the front of the street where you place your store, where you sit in the search results has this impact. If you're on page 2, you're kind of round the back, so hopefully you'll pick up a few people. If you're on page 5, you're in the shed at the back. And if you're on page 10, well, you know, the odd camel might wander by if you're lucky, but probably not going to convert them too well. And then, just as in the offline world, you've got the same situation, but people are looking for different things. They're potentially looking to buy. And if it's somebody like me, I hate shopping. So I will walk down the street, and ideally I love online shopping because I can get to exactly what I want as quickly as possible and get the product and be gone. If it's my partner, slightly different story. You know, we'll wander into a few stores, try a few things, go back to the store that we started from, usually, and then maybe we might buy something. But we've got exactly these same behaviours in the digital space. And we need to deal with it. And we need to deal with it because we live in a very harsh world. A very harsh world. This is from New York Stock Exchange data, 50% of businesses that existed 30 years ago and were profitable, not businesses that were losing money that had a limited runway, 50 businesses that were giving good returns for shareholders but were not growing enough are gone. They are no more. They've been acquired, they've gone out of business, they've stopped. So we have no choice. The modern world is we grow or we go away. But growing's kind of tough. We've got the 800-pound gorilla or the 500-pound samurai to deal with. So how? How can we continue to grow? How can we exploit the growth engines within our business? Now I'm going to cheat a bit here. I could have come up with my own words, but instead I stole them from McKinsey. Good place to start from, I'd argue. And normally I say you should never read off slides, but I actually want to say this, and I want to say it out loud. There is no point optimizing your growth engine until you're clear about the opportunity you're going for. You need to understand where you are and where you want to go. Because if you don't do that, you're optimizing where you are right now. Now, that's not a bad thing in some senses, but potentially you're missing a much bigger opportunity. It's like saying, here's my product set, I'm going to get as many sales of that product set as possible. And not asking the question, well, hang on a minute, I have all these customers and I have these other products that potentially could grow far faster. So all I'm saying is we have to think about this in a much broader fashion so that we get to the real opportunities. But how? At the moment I'm asking a whole bunch of questions and I'm not giving a lot of answers, I'm aware of that. So the question is, where's your growth going to come from? And in order to do that, you have to think about the way that it's structured. You have to think probably more about how your customers navigate it. How do they find you? Right? Do they find you based on the way that you think they do, or could they potentially find you in other ways? Where are those opportunities I just talked about that you haven't potentially seen? And critically, what trends are emerging? If we believe the statistic, and I haven't been able to verify it, 15% of searches every month are new, not seen before. So if you think about that, the rate at which new trends are happening is at a completely unprecedented rate. We've never seen this before in commerce. So we've got to look really, really carefully. And we do need to get granular. I'm guessing most of the SEOs in the room are going to say, yeah, great, we get to play with some data. And yes, indeed you do. You've got to look at the detail, but from the perspective of the macro. So what data am I talking about? Well, in 2019, Alpha did a study on decision making. They asked 300 senior managers across various industry sectors how they made decisions. One of the questions was this: how important or not important is it to use data? Anybody guess what the larger numbers look like? 58% said it was very important, 33% said it was important. Pardon my French, but no shit Sherlock. That's kind of what you'd expect people to say. So, 91% think data-driven decision-making is important. How many people actually do it? 58%. 58% admitted. I'd argue it's almost certainly significantly higher. And people are making decisions and they're claiming that they have data to back it up. So the same data decision-based formation is important, but they're not doing it. Why? Why are people struggling to make good decisions? Well, there's a limit to what we can do about these. Some of these are inherent. Are you allowed to make a decision? Are you fighting an organisation that has a view of the way things should be, and you're going to have to fight that to get them to change? Or have you got an organisation that kind of says, hey, look, great, we're open to change, but let's just have a talk about it. And then we'll have another meeting next month to talk about it some more, and then maybe something will get decided. But the number one issue, 47%, for some reason the slide seems to have gone a bit wonky, 47% was a lack of quality data. Data to make decisions about what products to put where on the site, what keywords to focus on, what business to do. And yet we all know that 65% of all e-commerce will start on a search engine. So why don't we use that data? We've got that data. And that's what we are doing with Searchmetrics Insight that I mentioned right at the start. Insights from search. And we all know what search is, don't we? It's keywords, it's rankings, it's volumes, and it's products and category data. But I would encourage you all to think about it slightly differently. What it really is unbiased data on what is actually occurring in the market. Those 15% of new queries are telling us where the market is going before it's actually happening. And the search data that we're seeing that is informational, that is research, tells us where people are likely to be buying in the not too distant future. Or to put it another way, the names that we use as SEOs, search volume, is actually an analogue for the target addressable market. It tells us how much business there is out there, how much demand there is for a given set of products or services. If you could turn it into a usable form so that it's not just data, it's intelligence that you can use to make decisions. Because I'll put it to you that we're all to a certain degree playing in our own sandbox. And the problem with playing in your own sandbox is you're not seeing what's happening elsewhere. Let me expand on that. You're a coffee shop. Okay? You've got a bunch of people in your coffee shop, they clearly come back regularly, they like your product. So you ask them, how did you get here? Where did you see the information about my store that led you to be here today? And from that you start refining and getting better. But actually what you need to be asking is what's happening in the other store that's 2 streets down? How did the people end up there? And then you actually want to be asking, well, how many coffee stores are there in this town? Well, there's 4. So now I have an understanding, instead of just my sandbox, I've got a picture of my market. So this is what we mean about using search data to, instead of basing our perception around our sites, and even to some degree competitor sites, instead what we need to do is to look at the totality and use the search volume and other aspects to tell us the size of the total market. so that we can then match what we offer to that. So that we can understand the who, why, what, how, and when questions, but for the market, not just what we have now. Because sure as eggs are eggs, people that are doing this right, they're in front of your customers right now. The people who are getting it right are getting their message, even when your message might be better. And you need to ask these questions. And I know SEOs ask these questions all the time. But do you ask them about the market as a whole, or do you ask them just about your own site? Because if you ask them about the market as a whole, then you can start asking these much bigger questions. I'm a skiwear retailer. I always put my skiwear front and center on my e-commerce site at the start of the season. Because people book their ski holidays at the start of the season and then they go and buy a nice new outfit to go skiing, don't they? No, they don't anymore. They used to do that, but it's changed. Okay? The internet's changed that. People book their ski holidays throughout the season now. We can prove that with data. Therefore, it makes sense that you put your skiwear probably not front and center the whole time. You need to think about what else you're putting in your store, but you put it there throughout the season. That one small little change can yield clearly tens of millions of dollars, euros, pounds, whatever currency you count success in. So what we have done as a business is to say, actually, all those data providers, we'd like to be in there too, because now we can start looking at demand on a taxonomy that makes sense from a market perspective. So in this case, as you can see, we're looking at body care products. And hopefully you can start to see very quickly, where's the market size, what's the seasonality, what's the overall trend throughout the month. And we can look at this by year as well. I'm going to skip forward quite quickly because I'm nearly out of time. But this is about using search data to provide the data to make the decisions, to provide the intelligence to make decisions that allows you to say, let's do X. And X isn't always now playing around with the content or playing around with the operation of the site. It's actually playing around with what product set are we going to offer and when. Quick example here. This is for fireplaces. Sorry, this is building. And you can see in the US market, one massive dominant player. If you look at the UK market, much more diverse. And here we're looking at fireplaces of all things. And what you can see here is strong seasonality. Again, no shit Sherlock. When it gets colder, guess what? People think about fireplaces. But if you look at the data on different periodicity, you can see that over time, the US market actually overtook, in 2017, the German market. The Germans really like their fireplaces, funnily enough. But now we need to know what kind of fireplace if we actually want to sell them. And guess what? You can see in the US, the market is very much for electrical fireplaces. Completely different set of products. So that is information from search data turned into intelligence to decide what product to sell, where and when. Last point, really quickly, because I'm in trouble, is clearly we need to look at the difference in the nature of that traffic, and that's what we do as well, as to whether this traffic is purchase intent traffic, so people are likely to buy in the near future, or whether it's information traffic, because clearly the way that you go and buy a cable tie is you find a cable tie, you buy it. It's not a major decision. On the other hand, if you're buying a transformer, then that's probably a fairly major purchase for an office block. And you're going to think about that, you're going to know the price. So, I hope that what I've done is deliver a message that says you need to optimize for demand. And as SEOs, you have a major role to play in exploiting search data to actually help your businesses make not only SEO-based decisions, but fundamental business decisions that will move the business in a different way. So if you remember nothing else, never ever ask for budget, ever again. Ask for an investment to deliver a return for your business. Thank you very much indeed.